Happy Friday, Junior, everyone. Jason within the Simpademic. I think I've mentioned this already, but there was a situation this weekend here where a woman from my distant past who's been kind of coming in and out of my life for the past 40 plus, 40 years or so, and offered to move me back to my hometown in Texas. I declined, and I initially had explained that it was because of faith reasons and because she is a fairly aggressive atheist. And so that doesn't match with my particular values. However, there is a part two to this that I didn't share. And I think it's something that everybody out there can probably not only understand, but also even adopt. And that is this. I made the decision about 5+ years ago not to ever be reliant on a woman for anything financially. Now, this doesn't mean, don't take gas money from them or anything like that. I'm talking about, paying for living expenses or just being entirely dependent on them for day-to-day living, housing, and things like that. And that is a situation where, at least temporarily, I would have been in that situation in Texas. But the reason why I got this conviction, though, is something a little bit different, and that is this. I used to be a part-time driver for Uber and Lyft, and in Minnesota here, I would drive the weekend night hours in an area of downtown Minneapolis called the North Loop. And this is a highly gentrified area. So I mean, these are not, cheap places. This is hardly, a lot of people's vision of downtown Minneapolis is actually a very upscale type of area, and it's heavily gentrified. The whole area used to be, warehouses and things like that, but then it's been replaced by these newer, sharper, higher amenity apartment buildings. And if I had $1 for every time this happened, I wouldn't be rich, but I would at least have my meals paid for a couple weeks. And that's this. If I ever got a ride request from somebody named Holly or, Carol or, some chick's name, I'd go there to pick up the passenger, and out would walk some hoodlum guy with trousers dragging down and their ass crack showing. And coming in, and they would mention her name. What this told me, and because I was taking them back to areas of North Minneapolis or Eastern St. Paul, which are lower income areas to begin with, what this told me is that these were men that were relying on these younger women for, first of all, obviously the women were paying for the rides, otherwise they wouldn't have come up with her name. But then they would probably use them for all sorts of other money. And it was after one of these that I just said, you know what, I'm never going to be that type of a guy. I'm going to always be paying my own way. I'm going to always be, paying my own living expenses, housing expenses, in the case of today, rent, my own food, entertainment, fuel, car insurance, everything else that is out there, I'm going to cover for myself. And even in a temporary situation like I would have been in Texas, it would have at least been a temporary situation, because she wanted me to come down as fast as possible. And you can't get a job, obviously, as fast as possible if you're in Minnesota and if you're talking about southeastern Texas or any trip of that sort of distance. So, and of course, the company I work for now doesn't have any major operations in southeastern Texas. And so it would result in me trying to move to a different company. Katie has substantial, larger employers, but most of them are in the energy industry. As you probably would figure, it is the western tip of the Houston energy corridor. So if I moved to Katy with any amount of speed, it would be without employment in hand. Unless I was able to get a fully remote job, which I've tried to do before, but even that particular market's a little tricky to navigate, because I mean, there's a lot of really bad job listings out there, et cetera, et cetera. So I would be at least have been dependent on her for a short period of time. And that is not something I'm interested in doing. My conviction is that I just will never do that. And so if you're a man out there watching this, I would, feel free to write in the comment section below what you feel about this, but I believe that's a strong conviction for any man to have. Regardless of other situations or things like that, you should be able to carry your own weight and carry your own self financially, pay your own bills. As I've said before, I live in the exurbs of the Twin Cities, and I have, a little over 1,000 square feet here for myself. A nice, larger 2 bedroom, and I live fairly, comfortably. As far as food goes, I don't always eat out, but I eat reasonably well. And I, have money to bowl in a league. I have money to go back, I got to get back into the gym, but I have enough to be able to do that. And I am very content with this particular lifestyle and very settled. And I don't live begging for anything. I have, for somebody with a 2-year degree, I have an excellent job. But even at that, that pays my bills in this particular economy. But I do drive part time for DoorDash and Uber Eats because I like to have enough money to have fun money, as you can probably call it at best. But nonetheless, I never want to be dependent on women for any of these types of things. And so that is, part of the conviction for telling her no has nothing to do with my faith or beliefs. Part of it does, but the other part of it doesn't. And I think this is a best practice, I think, for any man out there. Don't find yourself dependent on a woman for anything. These men who I used to pick up in these, I don't want to call them luxury apartments, but they're high amenity apartment buildings in the Minneapolis North Loop. I could talk to these particular guys getting into my car under the name of a girl or a chick. I could have a conversation with them, but did I have any respect for them? No. Really, really didn't. And that's when I decided I would never be that type of a man. I'm never going to be them. And that's why that's about half of the equation of why I turned down the offer to have my move entirely paid for to get back to the Houston area. So anyhow, this is Jason and the Simpademic, putting a full picture on the explanation for why I made that really emotionally wrenching decision, but it was a decision I had made in advance because of my convictions, such as that one. So anywho, guys, Friday's tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow night for the Friday night edition of End the Simpademic. And peace out, homies.